So let's say some words of Torah. We'll make our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu masutav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise the Lord God, creator of the universe, who gave us the command to study and delve into your words of Torah. We have a double parsha, so that's pretty special. We were reading last week with Korah, and then we have Hukat and Balak. So we have the Israelites, and they're in the wilderness. And turns out they're not heading directly for Eretz Yisrael. Why not? What happens?
That's old news. Circuitous route.
They have to take 40 years, right? What happens?
The slaves stuck.
Right. They had the slave mentality. Exactly. They just didn't feel like they were going to be able to up for the task to fight their
spies went out.
Right. They feel like, you know what, they're giants there. Like, we're grasshoppers in their eyes. Like, we're grasshoppers in our own eyes as well. There's no way we're going to be able to.
It's interesting because there are people they have to make a new step when they're doing something different. They often obstacles in their way because they're afraid of trying something new.
Mm-hmm. Right. So in this case, they were worried about big walled cities. They're worried about armies. They're worried about, strong, battles that laid ahead with big, giants and warriors that would come out against them. And they said, we're not ready. And God agreed. He said, you're right. You're not. Mm-hmm.
The first 2 years.
And then immediately, so immediately what happens is they start saying, well, you know what? Maybe our leaders aren't ready either. So there's a rebellion against Moshe, and also against Aharon and his spiritual leadership. The priests have a rebellion as well. And in last week's parsha, we saw that Hashem said, actually, no, I did choose Moshe, and here's a sign. Everybody who stands with Korach, just gather over there. And Moshe said, what's coming isn't my doing. This is God's command, and y'all need to make a lot of space around Korach and his company, because the ground, it's going to be something you've never seen before. The ground will open up like a mouth and will gobble them up. So just get way back. And if that doesn't happen right away, if they die like a natural death, you'll know that it wasn't God who told me to share with this. But if this is a massive miracle, you'll also know. This will be a very clear sign. And at the same time that the earth, in fact, gobbled up the rebels, the 250 priests, the people who were saying to Aaron, maybe, why is it your family that receives the mantle of the high priesthood? In fact, fire did come down from God to burn into their fire pans, but the fire also ate them as well. They were burned up as well, kind of like Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Abihu, same idea. And God said very clearly, this is Moses and this is Aaron. These brothers are the ones who I have chosen to lead you, right? And there was a plague as well. And again, Moses and Aaron, they stand in the gap and they turn aside the angel of death from killing the. In fact, at one point, right at the beginning of last week's parsha, God had said, "I'll just wipe them all out, and I'll start again with the two of you." And they were like, "What? Did the sin of one Korach, one group of leaders?" Because these weren't just random people; these were leaders of the tribes that stood with Korach. Should everybody suffer because of them? And I said, "Okay, I'll turn away my anger yet again." So Moses has this, communication with God. So now we have a recipe here.
Where is it where the people are being bitten by snakes?
We're going to get to that. That's going to be in this week's parsha. That's in Chukat. In fact, I'm reading that this morning.
Reading Shishi?
It's a long one, yeah.
Yes, it is a long one.
All right, so here's
what I was going to ask. What I was going to say is that when Moshe was told to carve a snake or whatever, a golden snake or whatever it was, and have the people look at it. I'm
copper
thinking
snake.
that,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that that was idol worship.
Okay, so we're gonna get to that.
Okay, you're gonna
Okay.
get to that.
We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
But here first we have a recipe for what I think is potentially salvation or disaster. This is a pretty dangerous one. So this is chapter 19 of Bamidbar. And it says here, this is in Rashi now that I'm quoting, that this law is going to cause the devil, Hasatan, to cackle with glee. Now I'm paraphrasing Rashi. Okay, this isn't exactly what Rashi said, but he's like, there will be not just one or two, but thousands of people who say, this law proves that this is a chok, it's something you can't understand. This proves that you shouldn't follow Judaism, that you should leave your faith behind. And why does he say that? What is so strange about this red heifer? What is this magical ritual? Why does Rashi say the devil is glad about this law?
I don't know why he says it, but if it cures one set of people, but the people who prepare it.
Exactly. How come the people who are burning the red heifer, it has to be exactly red, no, not even 2 black hairs, right? How come those people become impure, right? So on the one hand, this is the source for tremendous, questioning and doubt amongst our people for all ages, okay? So what we're struggling here, the whole overarching theme is issues of faith, right? So we saw that in the wilderness, right? We're gonna see it again and again. Questions of why do I believe? How do I believe? What are some challenges to belief? So here's a massive challenge. But on the other hand, this red heifer, this ritual also is coming to share with us there's a cure for impurity. Even if you feel that you are so dark, even if you feel like you're so tarnished, blackened, perhaps in your soul, here's an answer. Because this red heifer doesn't come across even every day or every generation even, right? It's once in a lifetime, a millennium maybe, right?
Doesn't it say somewhere that there's only been
6.
3 or 6?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like, right? But it's going to be very precious, and this will purify you. This will bring you back. Right?
And so you have to understand the context is, first of all, just look at Torah for a second, the last parsha. It takes place 2 years after the Exodus. Okay, that's the second year wandering. And all of a sudden in Hukat, it's 38 years later. Right? In other words,
We don't really know when Hukat was. We know the next one was 38 years later.
Yeah, this is also we're going to presume this is towards the end of the.
right.
I mean, it makes it more powerful if this is according to Rashi. In fact, this whole this whole group is the group that's supposed to be coming into the land of Israel now. That everybody who was in the previous group with the spies is now already passed away.
Except for Miriam,
Right.
Aaron, and
And you
Moses.
see what happens to Miriam, Aaron, and Moshe.
Pass away.
Pass away in this parsha.
Way here, and that's the reason for the red heifer.
Right. Exactly.
You don't want this obsession with death.
Mhm.
Judaism is about life, not about death. And so the red heifer is the cure. Okay, it's
So then the red heifer should come after their death, not before.
Well, no, I'll give you the answer, and then exactly.
for the disease.
The answer before the question, right? So here it is. I love that. That's also from the classical commentary. So that there's a reason why we learn about the red heifer right now. So we're gonna jump past that first chapter of Hukat into number 20. Okay, and we're gonna study on this a little bit. So I'm gonna be on page
Bottom of page
883. That's in this Eitz Chaim Chumash. So Kaf, so chapter 20, Kaf of Bamidbar and Hukat. Okay, and specifically what I want to be looking at just a little bit, and then we're gonna go farther. So not to dwell on this the whole class, is does the punishment meet the crime? Because all right, let's see what happens. Okay, so somebody want to read for me chapter 20?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
The Israelites arrived in a body at the wilderness of Sin on the first new moon. And the people stayed at Kadesh Miriam died there and was buried there.
Okay, so what happens right away?
Miriam dies and the
Miriam
water,
passes
and
away.
there's no water.
Right, and as soon as Miriam passes away, they get thirsty. There's a midrash that there's like a well that follows around Miriam because of her holiness. And also of what she had done in helping to raise Moshe, and also during the time of the splitting of the Red Sea. And she was rejoicing in Hashem. And here she was, she had been cured from leprosy. All of these things have happened in the past. A holy woman, leader of the tribes. And now she's passing away.
Pivotal moment. She was at the beginning.
Yes.
She started at the beginning and here she is at the end.
Yes.
The Midrash also, I don't know if it's the same one or a different one, goes on and says that the rock that Moshe hit the first time is the same one he was supposed to talk to now. That the rock came with him the whole time.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, let's keep reading.
I mean, either that the water came from the rock or the rock covered the well. What do you call the well hole?
It was like a
And
lid.
the whole thing came along.
Interesting.
That's in one of the midrash.
So it not only was the well traveling, but the rock on top of the well was also traveling with them the whole way. Okay, excellent.
It's interesting that you would talk about the well traveling and not thinking about the tools to dig a well, which would make more sense.
Shovels.
Well, boring material, whatever's can make a hole. in
They
the
didn't have
ground.
those great big machines back then.
Well, but that's
They did it by hand.
even more so, and,
Right.
Levers and pulleys.
There's
I'm
a
sure.
tradition that the Israelite armies, they had to take a shovel with them, a spade, along with their sword and their other war making materials,
That
so
was to
that
build with
they would
trees.
have a latrine, so that they would have a clean camp. They would also, so they would be able to dig fortifications.
They
The
do
same shovels that they
They still
use
do that today.
to dig fortifications.
They take shovels with them.
I'm
Yeah, of
sure
course.
they do, yeah, but you don't know what you're gonna find.
Exactly.
They tell you to take a shovel with you in your car in case you get stuck in the snow.
That's a whole different reason.
That's it. That's in Cleveland, right? And right.
Nelson, you have a shovel in your car in case you get stuck in the snow?
He's on mute. Okay, good morning, Boker Tov. So we're gonna continue with verse 2. So Miriam just passed away.
Of course, a very small shovel.
Jackie,
Yeah.
Right.
884.
Height of the pandemic, the grave diggers dug the grave, but they took the shovels with them. And some of them were very useful.
So that's our tradition, is that we help to bury our own loved ones, right? Exactly. So it's a Shalom. We call that a beautiful mitzvah that cannot be repeated. Hold on 1 second. So what did it mean to you when you saw your son taking the earth with his own hands to bury?
We were in trouble.
Right? It also meant that you use what you have at hand. This is our family's mitzvah. And just because you took the only shovel doesn't mean we can't bury our own loved ones in a malbish, in a honor way, a way of honor, dignity.
I find it interesting now that I'm thinking about it. We don't dig the hole to put them in. We cover the hole after they're in.
The grave diggers dig the hole.
Yeah, but we don't do it. Family doesn't do it.
We hire grave diggers.
I think
You're paying the funeral home to. Yeah. You are doing it.
You're paying for it, but you're not doing it personally.
So are you making a comment on manual labor and Jews?
I'm making a comment and I'm interested in why we don't dig the hole in addition to putting the dirt
I
in
think
afterwards.
Whole thing.
Is that all it is?
Well, I know that it's hard labor. Here we have machines. I know in Charlotte, North Carolina, they had to go to the center of town. This was in the 60s. They went to the center of town. Got a few guys who were bumming around looking for work. Pulled them up to dig. And one time they couldn't find enough. And so some of the leaders on the cemetery committee had to dig the grave.
Mhm.
They remember the first came such a COVID and what do we do now?
Yes. This is during a time of plague. This is during the time of the plague. Uh-huh. So we're going to learn about some death and some rituals about death in this parsha. Would someone like to continue with verse 2 of chapter 20?
Page,
Page 884.
Are you gonna do it, Jackie?
don't have my reading.
Oh, the community was without water and they joined against Moses and Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, if only we had perished when our brothers perished at the instance of the Lord. Why have you brought the Lord's congregation into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die there? Why did you make us leave Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? A place with no grain or figs or vines or pomegranates. There isn't even enough water to drink. Moses and Aaron came away from the congregation to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. The presence of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, you and your brother Aaron take the rod and assemble the community. Before their very eyes, order the rock to yield its water. Then you shall produce water for them from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their beasts.
So let's pause there, please. Yes.
Suddenly, there's a place with grain and figs and vines and pomegranates. I thought they only had manna in the desert.
That was in Egypt. So it's a compare and contrast. They're saying, over there, the water flowed out of the Nile. It was flooding regularly. You could set your clocks by it. In fact, they did. And you know what? Here, the only water, the only bread has to come from God. There's no regular flooding of the river here for us.
But the thing here is now you have people complaining that were born in the desert. And they're not of the slave mentality here. It's a different generation. So the frustration for Moses is great because, it's one thing to have to placate the people coming out of Egypt. It took them time, right? They couldn't handle their independence, their freedom. But this generation is a different generation. And it's a contributing factor to Moses's depression and anger.
There are people in this generation, if you want to call it that were as the people that died off were those 20 and older. So anybody who was up through 19 could have been these people, and they did experience Egypt. Just keep that in mind.
So Rashi asks a question: why, when Miriam passes away here, does it not say Al Pi Adonai? Why doesn't it say specifically that she died with a kiss of Hashem on her mouth, like it says other places, right? We'll see that later. Rashi's asking the question: why doesn't it say that she passed away Al Pi Adonai, like with God kissing them, and right?
I know it says that for Moshe. Does it say that for?
No, that's not. Okay. And Rashi answers, this would have been disrespectful to speak about the Most High God kissing a woman. So that's why it doesn't say by the mouth of the Lord.
Oh,
okay.
But yeah, right.
Art scroll.
Okay.
No, Rashi.
Not exactly.
That
No,
was
this is the commentary with Rashi. So I figured I would bring out some Rashis today. Maybe Rashis that you haven't heard before. Okay. Anybody want to make a comment on that one? Well, what do you think about this idea of God giving us a final kiss before we? So Rashi is saying she does merit that, and that did in fact happen, right? Just doesn't say it explicitly. This is like remez and sod. This is, into the midrash. You have to delve a little deeper. Some of the mysteries of what isn't said. But what do you think about this idea that God is with us? Maybe the angel kisses us right here where they have the little indentation on top of your lip. You learned all the Torah. Do you know this midrash? Before you're born, and now it flees. Now you have the enjoyment of relearning it. Now, why do Jews take so well to Torah? Well, they already learned it once. Now it's coming back to them. We learn it again every year. We come to this parsha every year. So the angel kisses us before we're born. God kisses us after. What do you think?
Seems like nice bookends.
Yeah, connection, loving, bookends. Yes, right.
Well, it says, from earth to come and then to earth you return.
Yes.
So it's the idea, it's a complete cycle. God never leaves us.
Yes. And what does it also say about dying from thirst? This must have been really bad. Dying from thirst is worse. It would be preferable if we were just going to be dying right away, like from a plague from God. Kill us now versus let us die from thirst.
I'm going to make a statement that nobody's going to agree with. They would still had the manna, and you don't die from thirst if you've got food.
Right, but in this next, so I'm gonna jump ahead. They're gonna say halechem hal kol, this terrible bread, this cursed bread.
Yeah,
they say that they're sick of the manna.
so give them quail.
Right.
We constantly have, if we have no other choices, we get sick of.
I get sick of my bicycle route. I basically take the same route every day.
So in Cleveland, we have more water than most places on the planet, right? We're surrounded by a massive source of fresh water. I mean, a really big one, okay, right? But are we sick of the water? Do we take it for granted here?
No.
We do, yes.
We do take it for
Unfortunately,
granted?
we do take it for granted.
What would be a sign of us taking it for granted?
We don't take care of it.
Showers.
Long showers,
I
okay?
agree with you.
Okay.
I love it.
I mean,
The way we pollute it.
right, okay. I was at a Lake Erie beach the other day, and there were green flags flying saying the water is not polluted. There were what they call the E. coli counts with, like human waste getting flushed into the estuaries and then down into and they said it's safe to safe swimming. And there were lots of families. There were people with dogs running in the water. There was all kinds of, I mean, Cleveland is getting known literally as having nice beaches. Anybody who grew up here would say that is not ever going to happen. That's just impossible. So I think we are taking a slightly better care of our water.
Yeah, and in the meantime, look at all the algae on the west end of the lake. So we're not taking care of it.
Yes.
People never thought much of it. Now that it's only because there is no water elsewhere.
Mhm.
That people are saying, hey, Cleveland, my husband always said, Cleveland will survive with Cleveland water.
Water.
People talk of taking some of our water and
Not just ours, the entire Great Lake. They were talking about the entire Great Lakes and piping it to the southwest.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And we can drink from our water.
I drink bottled water because I don't love the Lake Erie.
You like the tap water here?
Lake Erie.
I think our tap water is really good, actually.
I think it's better than a lot of places.
I mean, I think my tap water might be better than what's in your bottle.
Yeah, because you're.
Especially if you keep it in a hot tub,
Right. Once the plastic
poisonous.
goes into the
Plastic
water.
isn't any good for you.
Example of how we take it for granted.
Yeah.
So growing up in Israel, we really had to conserve water. That's why we came up with all the innovations, how to water the טפטפות,
Drip irrigation, yes.
irrigation, yeah.
We're taking out the salt.
Desalination.
Desalinization, yeah. Reverse osmosis plants, yes.
My niece came to visit me, I don't remember how many years ago. And when she saw I'm keeping the water running, when I'm brushing my teeth, she was just outraged. I said, I'm brushing my teeth. You have to turn it off. You cannot waste the water.
Right.
Not to mention my long showers, you know?
In the shower, so turn off the water, soap up, and then turn it back on.
That's what they do.
They do that.
You don't have a choice. There is no, it's desert. You have to conserve the water. In Arizona, they do the same. Do you cannot?
People to take out their lawns and put in what they call xeriscaping, which is rocks instead of,
That's very true.
I had a friend that used to live down there and
The
they
sprinkler
gave
system.
them a break on the price of water if they didn't have a lawn.
Mm.
And they also gave them a break on the water if they had a pool and didn't have a lawn.
Yeah, and Arizona used to be very dry and people would go there because it was not humid.
Right. Right.
And then rock in front of the house, they
Mhm.
used lawns.
Mhm.
Then people started putting in lawns.
Golf courses,
And then you had to have water and then it became very humid.
great. Apparently you can't play golf in the desert, I don't know.
When I was in California.
What, do they have a grass trap?
To bring buckets in the shower with you to save that water.
Okay. So we know, as a people, we know how important water is. Okay, so now we come to the point of anybody else want to read now what Moshe and Aharon do? Because we're gonna have to look at the words pretty carefully. Okay, so we're gonna look at very closely at a few words here. Okay, so we're gonna read it in English and in Hebrew. I'm on verse 9, page 885. So chapter 20, verse 9, Tet. And you're gonna read us in Hebrew? Okay.
לקח משה את המטה מלפני אדוני כאשר ציווהו. ויקהלו משה ואהרון את הקהל אל פני הסלע, ויאמר להם, שמעו נא המורים, המין הסלע הזה נוציא לכם מים. וירם משה את ידו, ויח את הסלע במטהו פעמיים, ויצאו מים רבים, ותשת העדה ובעירם.
Okay, and in English, please, verse 9 and 10 and 11.
Moses took the rod from before the Lord. He had commanded. Moses and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock. He said to them, listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock? Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. Out came copious water.
Okay, so what happened here? Right,
Like he did the first time.
right.
I
Right.
have a question about the Hebrew.
In the past, Moses was told to hit the rock, but here he was not commanded to do that.
He was told to talk.
Talk to the rock, right? Yes.
I have a question about the Hebrew, the roots for the Hebrew words for rod and hit. Are they at all, I mean, I see that they're similar, but do they really come from the same root?
So yeah, so he takes his mateh, that's his rod, right? And vayach, and then he hits
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong word.
The rock. Yach
I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong word.
with his rod. Okay,
The Lord tells him to take the rod with
right.
verse 7.
Verse 7 and 8.
He tells them to take the rod to assemble the people. He
Right.
doesn't say use the rod on the
V'dibartem el
rock.
hasela, but he says talk to the rock, right? Or command the rock, or
Yeah.
ask the rock to give water.
This book
Moses
actually
says,
says or.
disobeyed God.
Right. So Moshe disobeyed God, and in what way did he disobey God?
Talk to the rock.
Yes.
He hit the rock twice with his rod.
Okay, so now let's look at the punishment, and then we'll try to figure out exactly where the sin was. So we're gonna verse 12.
Well, wait a minute though, still in verse 10,
Yes.
he says, listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock? That's a very derogatory.
So he's calling them Morim.
Speaking to the people.
He's calling them rebellious ones, Morim.
Portraying his anger.
Right,
And he's showing a lack of faith in the people,
right.
which is the.
Yeah, not his lack of faith.
That was the ultimate sin. He
Mhm.
lost faith in the people. And yet, and again, these are mostly people that were born free.
Right, so the Baal Shem Tov, so the Besht says, there's a way, there's two ways really, but there's a way to correct someone. There's a way to offer rebuke. There's a way to say, hey, there's a better way of doing this. One way is to belittle them, to say rebels. And what he's responding to is so that there's a midrash that all the children of Israel, that the whole nation has assembled to complain about the lack of water and that we're dying of thirst. And then they say to Moses, after he hits the rock the first time, what, that little trickle, that's hardly enough to water our babies, much less us and our beasts, you know? So then Moses hits the rock, but that they were egging him on. Hey, you hit the rock before, you know, do it, you know. And that Moses could have responded to them with love and compassion. You know, there's a better way we could do this. Instead of focusing on complaining, maybe we could focus on prayer and supplication. Please, Ribson.
But what we're doing, what we're saying basically is we're humanizing Moshe.
Mm.
If he had not hit the rock, but had spoken to them, oh, you know, everything is so perfect. No, every one of these heroes in the Bible has flaws. They are human. And what we're showing is that you do these things and that you're not a bad person. You may get punished, but this is a natural reaction, which I think today with psychology, we might say, you know, it's not so terrible. These people were human beings. They tried things. They got frustrated the way we get frustrated. I mean, I think that's, I'm thinking of this right now as we're reading.
Right.
I'm saying this from the top of my head, that we're making this all very current.
No, but what you're saying is that in Torah, people are human. Their flaws are not covered up. They're not hidden. All of the matriarchs and patriarchs are criticized. And, you know, you look in other religious literature, Christian Bible and so forth, you don't see that kind of critique. And there's some Orthodox.
But they all
that-
came later. In other words, we talked about our flaws.
Mhm.
The Greeks talked about the flaws of their gods. They always get into trouble. They get into more trouble than one.
Okay, but there's one more point in this sentence though. Listen, you rebels, shall we?
Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is a whole debate now between Rambam and Ramban, okay, as to why such a harsh punishment? You led these people all the way and you don't get to lead them into the land of Israel, the promised land, right? And it's because they said it to us. We will make this miracle. Instead of saying, this is God doing the miracles.
They're not sanctifying God.
Right.
They're taking credit.
Right, so this is what Ramban says, right? Rambam says it's because of Moshe's anger, because that's why he hits the rock, because he's just in frustration, and that he can't, that he should be, you know, calm and level-headed.
I mean, this whole idea of Moses being punished and not being allowed to enter the promised land, the commentaries on that there's like thousands and thousands.
So I did a little preparation for this class. I'm bringing them to you right now. I'm telling you what, right? Yeah. I just studied 5 of them, but yes, I'm sharing with you some of the differences amongst the commentators.
Right.
Right.
because it seems so unjust.
Right.
Why should the greatest leader of
Yes.
the Jewish people in history that has led them for the last
Israel, but Moshe, never again will there be a.
get to go in?
Right.
But there's a reason.
Rabbi?
Yes, I see
You
Nelson.
have the sense that for 38 years, the people kept complaining after Korach? Maybe the problem is that Moshe never really resolved it.
Well, he did. So it didn't. It was long before they got to the waters of Meribah. It was long before they got to the waters of arguing that he resolved it. The resolution was have faith. Like God took them to a land that they were going to have to rely on rain. They weren't going to have the flooding of the Nile. They weren't going to have Lake Erie to sit next to build their camps. And so Moshe's response to them was, you know what? If you see the burning bush, take off your shoes, recognize it, and bow down before God's miracles. And they have seen miracle after miracle. They saw the mouth of the earth open up to eat Korach, just like Moses predicted. That next minute it happened, right? They saw it.
Yeah, but they never stopped complaining. So in that sense, he never resolved it. He kept telling them things that didn't work. And
No,
he kept
he's-
repeating failure.
So is his failure because he can't demonstrate it enough? How many times does Aaron's rod have to flower into a burst of almonds and beauty, and all the other rods, the leaders of all these other tribes, their rods are just pieces of wood, right? How many times do you have to stick your hand into your breast pocket and now it comes out leprous and now it comes out clean again? How many times? What do you have to do to say, yes, this is something that we don't understand? And guess what? This God is fighting for us. This God is the one who's drowning the Egyptians. This God is the one who's going to drive out these Amorites and Moabites with like a hornets. They're going to scatter from before us.
But if it didn't work once, why repeat it?
So all the miracles in the world won't teach faith, is what you're saying.
Maybe. They'll teach it for 30 seconds. Now
Okay,
what are
so
you
what-
going to do for me?
So what will teach faith better?
I'm not Moses. And I'm that guy. I don't know the answer to that
So
question.
you have a whole generation in the desert. How would you, I don't know. Okay, so I'll answer the question for me. How would I teach faith, right? So one way to teach faith is to say, well, what has God done for us already? So to look into the past. Another way to teach faith is to say, what is God doing for us right now? Like today, right? Like, I mean, in just a moment, so you already brought this out. In just a few moments, in a few more verses, we're gonna say, okay, I'm sending the snakes to bite you because you're a bunch of complainers. Moses is gonna pray for you. Okay, I'll give him the answer. I'll send him the design for a copper pole, and I'll put this snake on top. And when they look at it, they'll be cured from the fiery, this seraphim, the nachashim. Okay, I don't know. So what are they doing for me right now? They're actively healing me. They're sending me manna. They're actively feeding me, right? So that's a way to teach faith. What's God doing for us right now?
Yeah, but
Like
it's
today. So right now in Cleveland, do you see signs that Hashem is with us?
You can say he cleared the air, but
Okay, sent a breeze to take away the particulate, the ash.
Say that he started the fires.
right, that's the
So,
problem.
you know, so
yeah, but here again, the problem isn't necessarily the people's faith in God. It's that Moshe is betraying a lack of faith in the people. And you can trace it back to at the burning bush when God tells him he's going to Egypt to speak to Pharaoh, to free the people. And he says, well, about his, the name, God tells him to tell the people his name. And he says, they won't believe me. And his hand turns white. He gets the you know,
Leprous.
the leprosy. So this is the same in a way. But the problem is Moses is not the right leader anymore for this generation. This is Rabbi Sachs now. It's not, it's a new generation born in freedom. And you have to persuade them. You have to talk to them. You have to let them.
So who is Moses's servant?
Joshua.
Okay.
Right.
Who is Moses's student?
Joshua.
Okay. Who is going to come after Moshe to lead the people?
Joshua.
Okay. So how is this person, Joshua, any different than Moshe?
Well, for
The
what-
answer is he doesn't have the same history.
I was gonna say he was
He's
younger.
Part of the new generation.
He doesn't have that same lived experience.
He wasn't a slave.
Okay.
He wasn't?
I don't think so.
Wasn't Joshua a slave?
I don't think so.
He didn't come out of Egypt?
Maybe.
I mean, it's not
Wait,
like,
wait.
it's not like Joshua went to Egypt.
Caleb was
with
Caleb and Yoshua. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I think there were two spies that were said. Okay, the two of you will go into the promised land.
And, you know, and he was one of the two spies that said we
Caleb
can
gets
do
to
it.
go into Israel too. Right. Okay.
Actually, it
So
talks about
There is a
Caleb.
different mentality. I compare it, the slavery mentality with the free ones that didn't have slavery, to the Jews from the diaspora and the Israelis who were born and raised in Israel.
Mhm.
It's a different mentality.
Mhm.
Totally different.
What do
They
you
act
think?
different.
I think
They
what you're-
are more chutzpahdik.
Mm.
I grew up in Israel. I know what I'm talking, okay?
Right.
Don't accept things that the Jews in diaspora will accept because they are afraid. They have this ingrained from generation of being in the diaspora,
Right.
raise any qualms, not to raise any galim, so to speak, if you know what I mean.
In other words, they're frightened about being identified as Jews rather than Americans.
And I'm telling you, there is a big difference.
That was true more, you know, pre-World War II.
I don't think so.
Wow. Maybe to a
I
degree.
think it's still to a degree there.
Whoever is an immigrant. In other words, the immigrant, like my father was born in America. But his father was, I don't even know if he spoke English. They grew up having to fight more, for more rights, for one thing. I think you can say that about any immigrant population today. Your parent, you know, when you talk about first generation going to college, you're going without an accent. You're going with your name. I mean, the one thing is that the Jews changed their names, and I think it wasn't just the Jews.
Yeah, a lot of people.
You know, you're going, it's a different attitude.
Yeah, well, you know, let's look at the time before World War II with Roosevelt. He wouldn't let the ships come in with the immigrants. You know, he was adamant. And because there were no Jewish lobbies, the Jews had no political power. Now today you have organizations like AIPAC, you know, and all kinds of Jewish organizations that are out there fighting for the.
Still struggling to get their voice.
But
And they are
it's not quite the same
rising.
back then.
Well, I think there is, I understand that there is a different type of mentality.
Right, well, you know, the Jews in Israel, I mean, that's, you know, it's their country.
So in this,
They're all Jewish,
we're
they're,
gonna come back to here. In this parsha, after Moses and Aaron received that harsh sentence from Hashem, they continue as the leaders, and immediately they say, for example, to the king of Edom, we want to come through your land. Just give us passage. We'll pay for any water that we drink. And the Edomites, these Amalekites come out and say, no. They meet them with an army at the border saying you can't cross. And so now the Israelites, their spirit is weary from the road. They're wandering. They're heading back towards the Red Sea now. Anyway, now they're setting out from Kadesh. So this is after they've left Meribah and Kadesh. Now they're coming to Mount Hor, Hor, and there God says Aaron is going to pass away. So someone want to read verse 20?
Interesting that he always announces it.
Yes, verse 22. So the announcement has been made. Okay. Someone want to read 22 there for me?
Let me pass through your country.
We're jumping up to 25. Yeah, 22. Jumping up to 22.
887.
887. Setting out from Kadesh, the Israelites arrived in a body at Mount Hor. At Mount Hor, on the boundary of the land of Edom, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, let Aaron be gathered to his kin, is not to enter the land that I have signed to the Israelite people, because you disobeyed my command about the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar, bring them up on Mount Hor. Strip Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar. There Aaron shall be gathered unto the dead.
So Rashi says, when God says to Moses, take Aaron and his son Eleazar, take him up the mountain. He says, take him with consoling words and say to him, Moses should say to his brother, happy art thou that thou wilt see thy crown given to thy son. That you're going to literally see your mantle transferred over to Eleazar. And by the way, Moses does not get to do this. Does he give his staff to his son or to his servant?
No.
He goes to Joshua, who is not his son. Right.
Yeah, right. Aaron gets that consolation. He sees the next generation take over.
Right.
I almost think that moving the vestments from Aaron is what killed him.
The vestments were keeping him alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
You say that about people today.
Rashi
So I'm gone
continues.
tomorrow, right?
Rashi continues.
I retired yesterday.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov. So Rashi continues that as he was taking the clothes off of his brother Aaron, he was putting him in white sheets, kind of like we're buried in a kitzel, and he was putting him in a cave that had been decorated with a beautiful bed surrounded by candles. This is very interesting. That he put him in the bed.
Who said this? Rashi?
Rashi, and that Moses closes his brother's eyes, and that's when he dies. He lays him out. He stretches him out, closes his mouth, and basically lays him to rest there. Basically, Rashi is saying this is the death that Moses wants for himself. Right, so he's doing this for his brother. Right.
Yeah,
So, by the way, does this
later
happen
Moshe
from?
does get basically the same thing.
No, his brother isn't with him. His brother isn't lovingly laying him to rest. His brother's already gone.
Right.
Nobody's up there with
No,
Moses.
I mean,
Nobody even knows where he's
as
buried.
far as dying peacefully on the top of the mountain.
Okay, so part of it is, but according to the Midrash, not the same.
No.
By himself.
Uh-oh, here
Yes.
comes trouble.
Okay, is it time for me to read Torah?
We're on the second one.
Okay. So
That's any more.
So what I would like my class to do is to continue a little bit more with this question. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this question. Y'all can choose to debate it or not. The question that I want to know is, what are some things that we can continue to do today to help us keep the faith? Because it seems like, and maybe we're not, out of water, but it seems like we have other challenges.
Gift.